Good evening to everybody. We will wait just a minute or two more for others to arrive. We have about 13 or so people signed up to attend, so we'll give them a minute or two more to log in. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Valerie Holmes. I am the Assistant City Engineer over the Traffic Engineering Division, and tonight y'all are attending the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Meeting for the Rice Street Study Area. Thank you very much for taking time out of your evening to join us, and hopefully this will be an informative presentation for you. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping. This is the screen that you should be seeing. Has the panelists, myself as the host, plus the attendees. You should be able to see the participants and Q&A pane on the right-hand side of your screen. If not, you can click these buttons. If you have a question during the presentation, you're welcome to type it into this box here, or if you choose, you can speak your questions out loud. A lot of questions are going to be asked during this presentation, so if you don't mind holding them until the end, and I will make sure to answer everything at the end of the presentation. So if you would like to speak to ask your question, you click the raise hand button, and once you've asked your question, if you wouldn't mind please clicking it again to put your hand down. To speak, you will click the unmute button at the bottom left of your screen. And then once you're finished with that, you can click it again to mute yourself. And I ask that everyone remain muted unless you have a question to ask. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the Rice Street study area that you see outlined in blue. Everybody that has an address point within this area will be eligible to participate in planning the traffic calming devices for their area, as well as vote once we finally go to a ballot. So an overview of the process, how did we get here? Basically, it starts out, somebody calls our office requesting a speed hump. I believe this area has been through the process before, so some of you who've been around may be familiar with the process. Otherwise, if not, happy to help. Once we get a request for a speed hump or any other kind of traffic calming device in the area, we will send out an application, and it's filled out and returned to us, at which point we will send a petition package. And once we get the required number of signatures on the petition, then we schedule the kickoff meeting, which is where we are at tonight. After tonight, where are we going? We will collect data. The city is responsible for collecting data that we provide to the study team. We collect volumes and speeds of cars traveling on the various streets throughout the study area. We will provide that data to the study team at the conclusion of the collection. It will be up to the study team to prepare the plan for your area, since the residents of the area are more familiar with the problems that they encounter, it will be up to them to come up with the plan. Once we have looked over the plan and determined that it is feasible from an engineering standpoint, then we will put it to a vote, and anything that is voted in and passed will be scheduled for installation. So again, back to data collection. These are the types of data that we collect. We collect average speed, the 85th percentile speed, and the average daily volume. The 85th percentile speed is basically a measure of 85% of the drivers in the area are doing that speed or less. And so that's generally what we target for our threshold as far as do we have a speeding problem in the neighborhood. That is our threshold for that. We collect the data on what we consider to be typical days, generally Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays during the school year, not during a holiday period, Labor Day, Christmas. We try to avoid the holidays because we want to get as accurate information as we can. So that's what we consider to be a typical day. And as far as the plan is concerned, the study team is comprised of volunteers within the neighborhood. We will have the opportunity to sign up for the study team at the end of the presentation. It will be on the website. We ask that basically 1 or 2 people per street within the study area represent on the study team. We don't necessarily want to have, 3 neighbors living next door to each other comprising the study team. We do like a good cross section scattered throughout. So we hope that can be achieved when y'all sign up for the study team. The study team will put together the plan as far as the devices that are desired for the neighborhood, and that plan will be subject to engineering oversight. We do have spacing requirements for speed humps. They have to be a certain distance from other speed humps, certain distances from the intersections, things of that nature. So we do a review of the plan and let y'all know what we can install or what we cannot install and why. And so it's an iterative process back and forth until we have an acceptable plan that everyone is satisfied with. This website here, thepublicinput.com/Rice Street, that is your clearinghouse for all of the information that we're going to provide for the neighborhood as part of this process. Any questions that you may have about that will be on this website, including a link to the recording of this meeting. It will be made available for anybody who could not attend. The streets that are eligible for traffic calming devices, we require a minimum of 300 vehicles per day and a maximum of 2,500 vehicles per day. Generally, anything 300 vehicles or less, it's the residents of the area that are mostly using the streets. It's not indicative of a lot of cut-through traffic. More than 2,500 vehicles per day, the street is generally considered too major to put traffic calming devices on. So those are our thresholds for what comprises an eligible street for traffic calming. The only exception to those thresholds is the 300 vehicles per day. If when we collect the data, we find that the speed is greater than 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, then that street will become eligible if it does not meet the 300 vehicles per day. So generally, what goes into the plan, we like to focus on speed humps. Those are the most aggressive form of controlling speeds within a neighborhood. Landscaped islands are also an option. They provide a more aesthetic appeal to the neighborhood. People tend to slow down when they have to navigate around these islands, and it just provides a beautification element that people tend to appreciate and slow down to enjoy. These are other devices that we will consider with varying levels of approval that are required to implement them. Anything that's under the neighborhood vote can be approved simply with a neighborhood ballot process. As long as people voted in affirmatively, then we can, put those in. Anything requiring engineering approval comes from my office and city engineer's office as to whether or not it will be allowed. And then the last three, the textured pavements, chicanes, and lane reductions, require council approval. And this is a cumulative process. So the further it is to the right of the page, it requires all of those steps of approval. So some things to keep in mind about speed humps. That, again, they have to meet spacing requirements from other existing speed humps that may be in your neighborhood. Spacing is generally about 400 to 450 feet. I can go less than that if I feel it's warranted. Something that people don't always realize is that each speed hump will affect the response time of emergency vehicles. We've been told that it adds about 8 seconds of response time to each speed to the vehicle's response time for each speed hump. So that's just something to keep in mind. Speed humps have to be installed with their accompanying signs, and the signs will be placed at the corners of the speed humps. And so it's important when developing your plan to make sure that the neighbors who are going to have these humps in front of their houses are aware that they may also end up with signs in front of their homes as well. It helps us to locate the signs in the event of inclement weather, basically snowplow operations. The signs give the snowplow operators a good idea of where these humps are located so that they don't damage them during clearing operations. And so again, it's important that the neighbors who are going to have these humps in front of their homes understand that they will also have signs in front of their homes. Landscape islands will require adjacent property owners' written permission. If you plan to do islands as part of your plan, you'll need to reach out to my office and we'll help you through that and give you the proper forms for neighbors to sign, because it does affect the on-street parking in front of their homes, and they have to agree to losing that parking as part of getting the landscaped islands. An alternative to speed humps that helps with the emergency vehicle response times are called speed cushions. They differ from speed humps in that they allow gaps in between the humps. It basically creates wheel paths that don't slow down emergency vehicles, but also keep in mind that while fire trucks and ambulances can pass, that so too can FedEx and UPS trucks, and sometimes they are the worst offenders. So just something else to keep in mind in developing your plan. So moving on to the vote, how is the plan voted on? Each item will be voted on individually on the ballot. It is an electronic ballot. People will be able to log on to that website that I showed you earlier and cast their votes electronically. Basically, every device that passes with 70% yes on the votes that we receive will pass, and that will be scheduled for installation. It's not based on the number of residents or number of households in the area. It's strictly the number of votes received. Think of it as kind of a general election where whoever votes, that's who ends up determining the outcome of the ballot. So anybody over the age of 18 and anybody with a valid driver's license, if they are under the age of 18, is eligible to vote. Installation is handled out of our Public Works Department. Once the vote is finalized, the control over that leaves my office and goes to Public Works. They do have numerous speed humps ahead of this neighborhood, several weeks worth. So the scheduling is out there right now. We're probably looking at about a 6-month backlog, and so just something to keep in mind in when you're preparing your plan, that it is going to take some time to get these installed. Once they have been ordered and are scheduled for installation, it will take about 1 to 2 days per device to install. My understanding right now is their schedule is allowing for about 1 device per week. So that's where we're at with that. And that concludes the presentation portion of this. Again, this is the public input website that has all of the information that you need. And if you have any questions or need additional information, this is my email address and my phone number, and I am more than happy to answer any questions that anyone may have during this process. We are here to help you, and we want this to be a success. So with that, I'm happy to take questions. Let's see, I think Shannon, you have your hand up if you want to go ahead and ask.
So, sorry, I'm turning my light on so I can see what I wrote down.
Okay.
So when y'all are checking for how many cars are going past and how fast they're going, is it like is it a device that you put out, or is there a police officer sitting out? I'm just curious because I live at the corner of Long Hill and Rice, and we're near two schools. So I'm just thinking if there's a police car sitting there, then everybody's going to like slow down.
Okay.
But we
So,
do get a lot of fast traffic, especially during the school drop off and pickup hours.
okay. So for anyone who could not hear that question, she was asking about how we collect the data, whether do we put a device out or is there a police officer on the corner? The answer is we have magnetic counters that we put in the street. We basically seal them down with a specialized tape in the street. We do not announce when we are going to put the devices out there because we don't want people to skew the results, if you will. We have, believe it or not, had instances in the past where people will drive over the counters continuously to skew the results. And so we don't announce, when or where we are planning on putting the devices, but we do collect them. It's not done through officers. It's not readily visible how we collect the data. But what we will provide at the end is a map showing the approximate locations of where the counters were and the data that we collected at each of those spots.
Okay, thank you. And
You're welcome.
like I said, if y'all can track some data during the school traffic hours, that would be great. Again, I'm at the corner of Long Hill and Rice, which is a two-way stop. But I would love to see that as a four-way stop, but I didn't see a stop sign as one of the items listed on the slide as far as things that could be a part of this plan.
Okay, so that's actually a slide that I reserve when this question comes up. All-way stops are actually not considered part of traffic calming. I'll let you read the bullets, and I'm happy to explain any of them. But we do not install all-way stops. There are federal warrants that we have to meet in order to justify the installation of an all-way stop. It's basically 300 cars out of an 8-hour, in 8 hours out of a 24-hour period. So you have to have 300 vehicles per hour for 8 hours. And then during those same 8 hours, you have to have 200 vehicles on the accompanying side streets. Basically, an all-way stop is considered the last measure that you would put in before you considered a traffic signal. And so we also find that if stop signs are not justified or warranted in a particular area, people will run them. And so then if we install an unwarranted all-way stop, the next call that we get is people complaining about people running the stop signs. And so it's something that we only consider when we have basically a significant amount of traffic to control. It is not used as a speed control measure. So sorry about that, but we can certainly look at an all-way stop at a particular location outside of the traffic calming process, but it is not something that we consider as part of this process. Does that make sense?
It does. I
Okay.
just wonder, like, with the traffic circle, if this space would be big enough for a traffic circle. I'm not sure. But even just cars coming from, I don't know if you're familiar with our roads here, but from
Mhm.
Hughes
Mhm.
down Rice Street, they build up speed and they just come flying through there. And
Yes.
so, because there's not a stop sign or anything, to maybe make them slow down.
Right.
Um, and then, like I said, we're on the corner of Long Hill too. And I was one of the people who went around to try to get some signatures, for this traffic calming. But what about like some of the roads that aren't listed as part of this, but are nearby, such as Long Hill and Old Augusta?
Um, we, like I said, I believe this area has gone through the traffic calming process in the past. Um, I generally don't change the area from previous studies unless there's a mitigating reason for it. Um, if it's outside of the study area, then it's really not for consideration as part of your process.
Okay, so that would be
Yes,
yeah.
you can
And it's just
certainly
because
encourage. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have two schools here.
Yes.
And so we just get, a lot of traffic on
Mhm,
these roads with
mhm,
people, bringing their children to and from school. And then we also get a lot of walkers. So we have a
mhm.
lot of kids that are walking. And right now, a lot of our sidewalks are covered up because people are doing construction. And so
Yes.
then kids are walking out on the road. So
Mhm.
there's just a big safety thing, especially, with the traffic and the kids. And I have children that go to school here, and it's
Sure.
just a concern.
Understandable. If you have any questions about sidewalks, we do have an in-step program, neighborhood sidewalk program, that's handled out of our engineering office. I'm more than happy to give you the number if you want to check on, say, the status of sidewalks in your area, if they're lacking or if there's anything scheduled for the area. I'm happy to pass along that information. I
Builders
did
are
want
just
to
covering them up.
Okay. I did want to clarify about the counts. We do gather 48 hours worth of counts. So we are targeting, a continuous 48 hours. So we will capture school arrival and dismissal times in that data collection.
Okay, thank you. I
You're
think that's
welcome.
it for all my questions. Sorry to hog.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So Michelle, I believe you have some questions.
Um, I'm using my friend's phone, but I'm wondering why there's not a speed bump or hump or whatever you want to call it on Amherst. Like I live at the bottom of the hill, so my house backs up to Amherst Street, like right where that stop sign is. And people, whether it's early in the morning, middle of the day, or in the evening, gun it going up
Mhm,
that hill, and
mhm.
there's not anything that you can stop.
Is that part of the traffic calming area that y'all are talking about, Amherst Street?
I'd have to go back to look at the map of the streets that are in the area. But if there's not a speed hump on a particular street, it's probably because the neighborhood didn't vote one in that location. The city does not dictate where the humps should or can go. Like I said, we look at it from an engineering perspective as far as
One,
spacing from an intersection or spacing from other existing humps, but we don't dictate that a speed hump has to go on any particular street. So if there's not a hump on a street, it's because the neighborhood did not vote one in on that street.
okay.
Okay, so how do we start the process to vote one in on Amherst is what we're asking.
So is Amherst within, I'm gonna
I
go back.
believe it is one of the
Amherst is one of
streets
your
listed.
streets.
Yes, ma'am.
If it's one of the streets in your study area, then it's up to the study team to decide to put one in.
Okay, so that'll be part of the
That's
24
part of
hour.
that. yes, that is part of what the plan that you develop. Basically, you're saying this is where we want the speed humps, or this is where we want the landscaped islands to go. That is on the study team to make that decision as
Okay.
to where you want the devices to go.
Okay, and I know you said you don't say the particular day, but do you have like a time window when this is going to happen, or before what date that the study is going to take place?
Or
the kids are in school.
it is gonna be while school is in session. We're
Mhm.
entering the holiday season. I could, depending on, I have one technician who gathers the data for me. And again, I have to revisit the number of streets, but we present all of the data all at once. So depending on how many streets and how many count locations, it could stretch to after the holidays before I provide you the data. So, but I would think early next year at the absolute latest is when you would receive the data to start your plan.
Okay, and so how will we receive that? Like by the paper notices, like we did for this meeting?
The study, whoever signs up for the study team at the end of this meeting, you have provide me your email address as part of that.
Okay.
And I will send basically a PDF file showing all of the data that you need. And it'll be in the email form, and the email will tell you which streets are eligible for traffic calming. Because again, we have to meet those thresholds that I described earlier.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Michelle, did you have any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, I'm going to move on to Aaron.
Yeah, I just had wanted to say, on that previous conversation you were having, I had been under the impression that Amherst was the whole reason that this started. And when we were collecting signatures, we were basically telling people that that was our intention, to do traffic calming on Amherst. I noticed that the project seems to be named Rice Street, which is fine. But I just wanted to make sure that the folks who will be analyzing this understood that that was our original pain point to begin with, was Amherst.
Let me go, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to the study area map. Okay, so there are currently 3 speed humps on Rice Street. Again, I tend to keep the study areas the same, but you can limit your plan to just Amherst. It does not have to encompass every street in the neighborhood. It can be, as long as it's in that blue area that I'm showing, you know, it can be as broad or as narrow as you choose. So if you only want to focus on Amherst, that's perfectly fine.
Well, no, I'm not saying that we do, because like I think it was Shannon that brought up Rice at Long Hill. There's definitely other problems. I just wouldn't want them to look at Rice and say, oh, well, we already have the speed bumps, that's enough, without realizing the serious issues that are going on Amherst. So I'm fine to keep it as it is. I just want to make sure that they understood that that was our original pain point that started our process here.
And it's up to the study team to communicate with the neighborhood as a whole. That communication is absolutely key in this process. And so absolutely, if you know, get representatives on Amherst, you know, as part of the study team. And so it's not like only Amherst residents can speak to Amherst Avenue, or Rice Street can speak for Rice Street. You know, it is an overreaching holistic process. And that's why we want representatives across the entire neighborhood represented on the study team, and not just in a limited area. So anybody can speak, you know, for anybody else, but it's really the study team, you know, communicating with the neighborhood, making sure that all of the issues and concerns are addressed as they are developing the plan. It just, the study team keeps it more manageable, you know, by keeping it at a smaller size.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fine. We no problem working on the whole area there.
Excellent. All right. Well, I don't see anybody else in the queue for questions. Don't think I have any written questions either. Let's see. I think that's it. If anyone else has any other questions, I don't know how, if everyone was able to hear the questions that were asked. My speaker is a little bit lacking in that respect, but if there are any other questions, I am more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm gonna run to the end of the slideshow one more time so that you have my contact information once more. And if there are no other questions, then we can consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you again for attending, and again, feel free to reach out if anything else comes up. Thanks so much and have a good evening.